Roberto, and I lead the Coppell Chamber's Government Affairs Committee this year. And in the past, we have always had the opportunity to help introduce candidates to the community who are running for local office. And this is our pandemic special. We are introducing Wes Mays today, who is running for mayor. He's a longtime city councilman. And I wish that you could all be here to also ask him questions. But we do have a format here where our committee has developed some questions. And we want to introduce Mr. Mays, and we hope that this will be useful in you making a decision in your vote this year. Welcome, Wes.
Well, thank you, Ricardo. I really appreciate it. You know, we all have been talking about over the past year with the COVID pandemic, what the new normal is going to be. And while Zoom and all the other electronic media is clearly going to be part of our future, I certainly hope that this is not how we do these things in the future. I really look forward to getting back and doing these live and in person. So, but I appreciate the opportunity to talk and have this dialogue. One of the things that about me, my family moved here over 20 years ago. Like many other people, we moved here for the school district. Both of our kids were in first grade and fifth grade. And I was working relatively close to the city, so it made a good choice. My job's changed a couple of times. And quite honestly, we stayed because of the kids and because this became home. And it truly is, I think that one of the things that's unique about Coppell is that we all look at this as our home, almost regardless of how long we've lived here. As you know, I guess we can almost say that we're long-term residents, but then I'll talk to friends that have been here for 36 or 40 years. And so I go, well, maybe I'm still a newcomer, but you know, we found our home here. We found our church, we found, our friends, and all the other things that go into that. We're very happy. My wife and I are both very active in various organizations, and we've been very committed to the community. I've been a member of Boy Scout Troop 842 since 2001, and I'm still doing merit badges for them. Mostly citizenship in the community of all things. So I've really enjoyed helping out the kids with that. You know, I still volunteer with MetroCrest Community Services. I'm a big, strong believer in that program. It definitely helps out the city, provides a need that the city has, and the things that MetroCrest does for our residents and their clientele is just unbelievable. So, you know, I'm very committed to this city and just really love living here. You know, longer range, I have a vision to bring all of our citizens together to achieve things in Coppell that other cities can only wish for. When you get into other meetings with other people from other cities, you don't realize how lucky we are that we live in Coppell. When you start talking to the other council members or other residents of other cities, you start talking to them about the challenges that they face, and our challenges are so insignificant compared to what they face that it's almost it's hard to talk to them about how lucky we are here. We do have some challenges in front of us, but quite honestly, with our very experienced city staff and our very conservative city council, I believe that we can move forward into the future. And I want to see that my leadership and my experience as a manager can bring this to fruition. Coppell has a wonderful foundation to build on. You know, this town is just doing things that most cities can only dream on. And we've got a 2040 plan that's going to set an excellent strategy to take us into the future. We have current initiatives like our allies in the community that I believe is going to allow us to achieve those goals much before the 2040 date. Like I said, I've lived here for 20 years and I've served on the Coppell City Council for 9 years. I believe that I have the experience and leadership to take the city of Coppell to the next level. And as your mayor, I promise that I will ensure that the best days of Coppell are still ahead of us. So, Ricardo, thank you very much.
Um, one thing you mentioned there is, having a vision. And I would just say, to continue on that, I mean, how do you feel that that vision might be different than that of anyone that you're running against, or in helping, well, in providing you sort of a rudder in dealing with other elected officials?
Sure. Well, and that vision is actually very much in line with programs like the Allies that I'm talking about. I see the city of Coppell coming together where our citizens can participate interactively and in an inclusion manner so that everybody is on the same page, that we have the same goals in mind, that we have the same vision for our futures, and that we're working together instead of against each other. And I see this as something that is completely within our grasp. It's completely doable for the city of Coppell. We've already got tremendous strides made in that area and in that direction. If you take a look at the different social programs that are already in existence, if you take a look at the different organizations that are already in existence in town, it's just a matter of connecting the dots and putting all of these groups together so that we can achieve a greater good. And I absolutely am committed to seeing that occur.
Okay. I guess, one thing that strikes me, I've been in business here for 15 years, and I've always been really happy that, because it's a small community, because people tend to really not enter into unnecessary conflict, that it is a pretty united community. But when you talk about inclusion, the one thing as a business person that I've kind of seen is, how do we reach the broader community? There seem to be a lot of people who aren't really as engaged in issues. And just sort of on that score, what are the 2 or 3 biggest initiatives that you'd like to undertake? And if elected, how would you advance them? How would you pay for them? And then how would you include different elements of the community, and how would these initiatives work?
Well, first of all, let's remember that the mayor of Coppell does not have a vote and shouldn't make promises that are the responsibility of the voting members of the city council. So that how we're going to pay for it is going to be up to the members of the city council. However, from a mayor standpoint, I plan to create a mayor's advisory committee that's going to consist of a cross section of our citizens that will provide me a device insight into our citizens' needs and wants. And I plan to also work with our city council to create an environment that we share ideas openly with each other so that we can all benefit from the collective wisdom. I find that everybody on city council has tremendous vision for the future, and they have tremendous needs and wants that they want to see provided to our citizens. We need to bring that together so that we can all work together for the collective good. The standard it's not an inside joke, but the standard is that you need 4 votes to make something happen. Well, if we all come together, we can all agree that on our future, and instead of being a divided council, we need to come in and all agree and see that become a 7-0 vote. So it's a matter of coming together and putting our ideas together and coming up with a vision for the collective good. So I believe that the 2 items I just talked about is going to create an atmosphere that will provide for a collective advantage that we can build upon and truly make the best days of Coppell in our future. And you were talking about how we finance something like that. Well, we provide and perform both long-term strategic planning and short-term tactical plans. That's kind of engineering speak, but our long-term strategy plan is actually a 5-year look into the future. And we review our 5-year assessment every year and make adjustments as necessary. Just so happens that our next 5-year session, our planning session, is in just 2 weeks. It's on April 15th at 6 p.m. Now, we do that just once a year, so it's actually a very important meeting for us. And the public, of course, is welcome to attend. At this 5-year assessment, we'll take a look at what we believe we're going to need over the next 5 years, and that then will become part of each budget plan that we do on an annual basis.
So concretely, when you're talking about actions and other than the advisory council, I mean, in terms of looking ahead 5 years or having a vision, concretely, what are the 2 or 3 things you really think need to happen in this community, or the areas where we need to focus?
So clearly, the 2 items that I see impacting us the most, the biggest single item that we have impacting the city of Coppell is influence from outside entities, primarily the state of Texas, and what happens in the legislature. We are chartered by the state, so we are subject to the rules and laws of the state of Texas. And there are some initiatives that will further limit the ability of city councils across the entire state to act in the best interest of their citizens. I am very concerned about that trend. And part of our strategy is to continue to influence and continue the dialogue with our legislators to let them understand our views on where we are. The way I like to explain it is, I go to a church with the people that vote for me. I meet them in Tom Thumb or Kroger. We are very accessible. All members of the city council are accessible to the entire population of Coppell. Whereas I don't think you can say the same thing about our state representatives or state senators. So the best government is one that's kept closest to home. So that's from a government standpoint. The other one is we still have the very real threat of the revenue reduction from State Rule 3.334. Fortunately, the implementation of that program was delayed a year, and it will be going into effect October 1st. We've now had a full year to prepare for that. We have a very good plan how to mitigate the downturn in revenue. And I see that as continuing to be a challenge, but we've been able to plan for it. We've been able to put mitigation impact plans into place, and it is not nearly as a serious a threat as it was when it was first proposed, simply because we've had time
for the public who's not as well read up on this. I mean, can you give us numbers? Can you just briefly describe, what's going to happen and how much money we're talking about in terms of, losing revenue for the city?
Sure. State Rule 3.334 is the so-called destination sales tax rule that changes the way that sales tax is collected. Originally, sales taxes in Texas were always collected at the source. In other words, all of our West Side businesses that do mail order business were collecting sales tax that stayed in Coppell. The new rule is changing that so that the sales tax is now being collected at the destination, i.e., where those packages are shipped to. That is going to have a significant downturn on Coppell's revenue. We actually are we have the 3rd largest impact in the state of Texas. Round Rock is the #1 impacted with Dell Computer Corporation. San Marcos is #2 with their Best Buy call center, and we're #3. The original estimates showed that approximately $24 million would be lost by the city of Coppell. And over the last year that I talked about, we've been able to mitigate that, and it's still being worked out. But we believe that the total impact is going to be somewhere between $6 and $9 million. We haven't been through our budget planning this year.
That's an annual number.
Annual number.
$7 million a year.
That's correct.
Okay. And let me just kind of jump ahead to one of the questions that we have, because it is, the question is, does Coppell deliver services in the most cost-effective manner? Please be specific about improvements you would advocate. And I would think that, for the public and for the business community, it would be, okay, Wes, we know we've got this big hole in our budget now. Have we already looked at how, frugal we are with taxpayer money? And what are we going to do about this, and how will this impact services that you think the city needs?
So, and those are all very good questions, and those are things that we've been working on for over a year now. When State Rule 3.334 first came up, which was in December of 2019, it literally scared us to death because it had an implementation date of less than a year. It was going to go into effect the following October. As a result of the pandemic, the implementation of the rule has been deferred to this year, so it's actually given us another year to work on it. And yeah, we all have to understand that the city's not a profit center. We can't make a profit even by law. However, we still offer services like fire service, fire department, the police department, roads, water, sewer, and those are all things that our residents need. Each year we carefully analyze our budget, and we truly make the best use of our tax dollars. So what we've done in the past year to mitigate 3.334, or the reduction in the sales tax, is we've deferred expenses, we've trimmed services, and we've actually limited some of the hours that some of our facilities have been working. We don't have since we're just now beginning into the budget session for next year, we don't exactly know how that's going to roll out, but we know that as a result of our budget trimming for the past year, we were able to trim $9 million off of our budget for the 2020-2021 budget. So this year, we're going to use that as a model as we go forward, and we will be able to open up the facilities that have been closed as a result of the pandemic. And I'm very confident that as a result of actions that we took this past year, that we're not going to see a significant decrease in city services or effectivity.
And are there specific areas? I mean, having had this experience, are there specific services or city offices that you would want to emphasize as we move into this? And you may not have heard this, but Layla was telling me that they've moved the vote in the legislature to Tuesday. So are there certain things that you think that, I mean, this is happening. So, and I didn't want to, drop that bomb on you, because I don't know if you heard about it yet or not, but it is, what are we going to focus on if we have less money? Where do you see us needing to put, the greatest amount of staff and resources to ensure what your vision is of this being the best possible community?
So there was not any one area that we specifically focused on. And so that's the good news. It's not we're not, going to shut down a facility. We're not going to close any operation. I think what you will see is that we did put a hiring freeze on last year. And I think that you're going to see that continue. We've only had a couple of critical staffing needs arise this past year. So I think you're going to see the city staffing levels stay pretty consistent, which will go a large way to meeting the budget deficit. We have deferred some capital purchases, which have been, were also very significant. At some point, we'll have to pick those up, but we've been deferring and actually setting aside dollars in a capital refurbishment fund. So I believe that we're going to be able to successfully continue that next year. We also cut certain services that hopefully no one noticed, such as we're not performing maintenance on some of our open areas, our parks and our fields, like we had previously been doing. And so that's saving tax dollars as well. So we just made a very, very broad trim of the entire budget. The significant areas were the staffing that I talked about, and some of the capital equipment purchases. And I believe that after this last year, that we've now see a path forward, and it's been difficult, but I think we'll be successful.
Okay. And a lot of the impact on infrastructure and such does focus on the west side of town, where we have our big businesses, which are being affected by these tax changes, I'll say. Um, and then so that does lead sort of to the question in terms of for the business community, you know, where does the development or redevelopment emphasis need to be in our community, residential and commercial? And how do you feel that the city of Coppell has performed in this area?
So I don't think it's any secret that we're pretty well built out, both residentially and commercially. You know, our economic development committee and departments just literally did an outstanding job of bringing new businesses to Coppell. The chamber was certainly a part of that as well. 25 years ago, about 80% of our revenue was provided by residential homeowners and 20% was contributed by businesses. Last year, that ratio was 58% residential and 42% commercial. So in a relatively short period of time, by city standards, 20 years, we doubled the amount of tax revenue contributed by the business community. And this was a significant achievement by the many people that have worked with our EcoDevo teams, and they all need to be congratulated. You know, going forward, we need to pay attention to both residential and commercial. Our 2040 plan actually recognizes this. And as a result, we created a new board called the Future Oriented Approach to Residential Development. That's a mouthful, so we usually call it the Ford Board. That board is still in its infancy, and part of their challenge is to understand what the future is going to look like. And I believe that we're going to be relying very heavily on that board for guidance and suggestions. And in fact, their first report to the city council is going to be in the next month or so. And I'm really looking forward to see what they have to say about their ideas on residential redevelopment. Commercial redevelopment or development is another question. And with the tax rate reduction of, the state rule 3334, I wouldn't be surprised to see some recommendations from the Ford board concerning some type of redevelopment in some of our commercial areas. We don't know enough about the long-term impacts of the state rule to really be able to extract out what that's going to mean. And I think that's where the Ford board and our economic development departments are going to have some significant input as we move forward in the future. But I'm very confident that
could you kind of define that? Okay, if there's going to be a difference, what difference might it be? I mean, it's probably preliminary discussions, but what does that mean, that we're going to look at things differently in terms of what's happened on the west side with bringing the big, warehouses and logistical businesses and such? I mean,
so one of the things that's starting to occur on the west side is some of those buildings are essentially reaching their end of life. It was hard for me to understand that, but some of those buildings are now in 20 to 25 years old, and they're needing a refurbishment. And really, from a commercial standpoint, that's a rebuild. I think we've got an opportunity, especially from a sales tax standpoint, to take a look at what type of development we want to put over there, whether it needs to continue to remain commercial, whether we could consider other types of development, maybe in planned development communities. The one that I'm particularly in favor of is taking a look at if we could use some of that development space on the west side and solve our never-ending problem with our senior housing. I don't know what that's going to look like. I don't even know if it's possible, but I certainly am interested in hearing opportunities there.
Okay. When we talk about economic development, I think there's always a question about, who's engaged in the discussion. You've mentioned a variety of different community boards, and you talked about an advisory council, but one question we always have is, how transparent is the decision making? How much do citizens know about what the new ideas are for perhaps redevelopment on the west side? And I guess the other thing that kind of comes with that is, well, how is that all communicated? I mean, I don't think 20 years ago anybody knew that all of a sudden Amazon would show up with 5 million square feet of warehouse space. And obviously there's going to be a dynamic between the residents of Coppell and the businesses of Coppell, and then there is, there is, in my view, something of a divorce, that there's not a lot of communication between them, very different focus on both sides. But, how do we keep those things transparent? How do we communicate those things to the citizenry? How well are we doing in terms of being transparent about the decision making?
So that's a debate that we have internally among ourselves quite often. And part of the difficulty is for an organization, I've never seen anything that is more transparent than Coppell is. I mean, that includes businesses, nonprofits, even the state of Texas and our federal government. I only know of one way to make our decision-making process more transparent, and that is for the interested party to become engaged. Most of the discussions over transparency that I've heard are simply due to lack of information. And it does take some effort on my part, your part, to become informed. I believe that the city goes above and beyond to allow our citizens to be informed if they choose to be. Every meeting we have is open to the public. It's all posted in advance by state law. Every work session, every planning meeting that we have, every budget review, every retreat, every board and commission meeting, they're all open to the public. Anytime we meet as a council, as a committee, as a board, as a commission, those are also open to the public and posted in advance. Where we end up with our difficulty is the information that comes out of those meetings. All of the information, all the meeting minutes are publicly available. In addition, we have recordings to those that are available on the city website. We have a electronic medium. It's called Coppell Clips that comes out. It's a subscription-based, it's free, but it's subscription-based. You have to sign up for it. That gives an overview of what's going on in the city. Our city website also advertises and promotes what the city's doing. We also do the water billing insert every month as well to keep our citizens aware. We post on various social media such as Facebook and Next Door Neighbor. And one of the things that's open to the public is if our citizens have a preferred mode to receive the information, our information department within the city is more than happy to include those sources in our distribution network. So, we are literally looking for our citizens to tell us how they need to be communicated with. We've greatly expanded our communication ability electronically over the number of years. 20 years ago, the only way that we communicated, I think, was through the water billing insert and occasionally through an article in the paper. And nowadays, everything is almost all electronic. So we're very open to accepting any suggestions from the public on how we would all like to be communicated with, and that offer remains open.
Okay, so we're in this about 29 minutes, so we're supposed to be 30 minutes. Why don't you just take a couple of minutes to just kind of conclude, tell us again, why we should vote for you, what you want to do.
All right, well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure having the discussion with the chamber today. I really wish we were doing this in person and live. And I do believe that our COVID situation is rapidly coming to it's not going to ever end, but it's going to get down to a manageable level. The vaccine is now publicly available to everyone. And I believe that's going to go a long way to restoring the public confidence in our health system. I am a long-term resident. I've got 9 years of experience on the city council. I have devoted a good portion of my time here in Coppell serving the city. I've got the experience and the leadership to know how to get things done. And I'm very interested in using that leadership and experience to lead this city and the city council into the future.
Great. Wes, thank you so much for your time and good luck.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the time.
Okay.
Thank you, Wes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Layla.
Thank you, Ricardo. You guys have a wonderful day.
Happy Easter.
Happy Easter.
Happy Easter.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.